Hi, it's Ben from Propane Fitness again. This is the second video in my log, and in the first video I talked about my diet and training. In this video I just want to talk about how you should approach your diet and training in terms of structure. So me and the guys have this phrase we like to use called "if it fits your lifestyle," which is something we just sort of came up with to fit the concepts that we use when we work with clients, when we structure our own diet and training. We've written loads of articles where this is implicit, but I just want to really state explicitly what that means to us and how you should use that yourself. So you've probably heard of "if it fits your macros," and that's a very common term used to describe flexible dieting, which means you don't worry about meal timing so much, you don't worry about meal frequency so much, you don't worry about food choices so much, because you know that there's no difference between clean and dirty foods, to use those terms. I mean, they're meaningless terms, but if you haven't, by the way, read the article by JC Dean on clean versus dirty foods, I recommend you go and read that now, because it will shatter a lot of illusions you may have had about your food choices and why you make them, or it might just in general educate you about food choices and help you make some more rational decisions with regards to your own diet. So anyway, if it fits your macros means you have specific macronutrient targets that you hit each day, assuming you've nailed the micronutrient intake. Of course, that's one of the key caveats, is that you're not deficient and stuff, so you're not just sitting there chugging whey shakes and dextrose to hit your carb and protein targets. You are trying to get balanced food sources that are nutrient dense, but you are allowing yourself convenience within that. So for instance, if you need to go out for a meal and you can't account for everything precisely, you don't sweat it, you just factor that in. If you do need to eat something which was pre-prepared, what you might call junk food, you can factor that in, it's fine. If you have moments where you want to indulge in something you really enjoy, again, you factor that in a rational way and you don't punish yourself. Okay, so that's what "if it fits your macros." I mean, if it fits your lifestyle, it means that you look at the constraints that you have on a daily, on a weekly or monthly basis. So that typically for most people, the major constraints are your job, your family life, and your social commitments. So for instance, some people, every week they go and do stuff like they go to the cinema every week, or they go and meet up with a certain group of friends and they go out and have a drink. So things like that you have to have as part of your life to keep yourself sane, just to be a well-rounded, balanced person. Things like that you can't change, and so the key issue with diet and training is when it starts to impinge on stuff like that, how do you deal with it? What are the choices you're making that are causing the problems, and how can you structure your diet and training in a more rational way that allows you to have a balanced life, to have a life at all, and still achieve your goals. So for instance, a lot of people when they look at Propane Fitness, I think we're all about sort of fasting and backloading, right? So what are those two approaches really at their core? What are they about? So fasting is where you skip having the first meal of the day for a few hours. Okay, there's nothing really complicated about that. But when someone has a work situation where they can't have breakfast, okay, and it would be so inconvenient for them to take some Tupperware with them and have like a breakfast time meal that it becomes like ludicrous. That's the time when fasting would in fact be the natural option to take. So for instance, I've had a client who was up very early in the morning, might be out at 6 a.m. and then comes back in the afternoon, and during that time can't really fit in any sort of normal eating. Maybe some snack food, maybe something pre-prepared, but nothing substantial. So with him, we would have like a small fast period and then some form of carb backloading. And that was really about convenience more than anything. So for instance, if you work a night shift, and again, you might have a situation where you're a DJ and you can't really have a substantial amount of food with you at night time when you're working, then it makes sense to just structure your diet around that rather than trying to fight against constraints which are only going to cause you problems, and especially when we really know that all of the science shows that the meal timing, the meal frequency don't really matter. It's about intake for the day. It's about the total protein intake rather than, you know, the timing of it. You know, with regards to protein synthesis, recent study which you've probably seen if you follow Lean Gains shows that there's no real upper limit on that with regards to protein intake. So if you're having a huge meal, you know, after training, and that's the only meal you can get in with, you know, most of your protein intake, it doesn't matter, you know, if you're doing that or if you're splitting it up into several small meals. So really, all we're saying is take the most flexible approach that allows you to achieve your goals. So for instance, when I was a student, it was best for me to train in the mornings because sometimes I would end up stuck in an office for hours past the point where I thought I would be home. And if I'd done my training in the evenings, I just wouldn't have been able to get in. The gym would have been shut by the time I got home. But I knew that if I always trained in the mornings when the gym opened, I could get that session in no matter what. And then the rest of the day would sort of be a battle to fit in, you know, the food rather than fit in the training. So, for instance, I'd bring pre-prepared food with me, or I'd have stuff ready at home, and I'd just eat it when I could. So that's a good example there, I guess. And so when it comes to things like fasting and backloading, these shouldn't be dogma. They should be tools which allow you to accomplish your goals in a convenient way. So for instance, if it is more convenient for you to eat 6 meals a day, to eat every two and a half hours, there's nothing wrong with doing that, just because it's, you know, it's now you know, it's now pilloried by everyone as being bro science. If that is the best way for you to hit your targets every day and make progress, then just do it. But remember that if you're one of those people that's sort of stuck at home, never goes out, always has to get there, you know, 8 to 10 hours sleep, and never drinks alcohol, ever, and, you know, is pretty miserable and unhappy with it. I'm not saying you'd be miserable if you know, didn't drink, okay, but if you're one of those people that's really suffering because you've made these rigid choices in your life, then you need to reevaluate that and think, well, what is the damage in having some flexibility? What's the point in living if you can't enjoy what you're doing, and if you can't fit it around your life? I mean, you can't call something a lifestyle if you don't have a life to live. You know, it becomes your life if you're all about your meals, all about your training. And fair enough, if you're a competitive bodybuilder and you are going to win stuff, you know, maybe you're going to go on and win a national competition, or, you know, you're going to make money out of this. That's fine if you're making those sacrifices because you're doing something for a reason. But if you're making sacrifices in your life that aren't based on any real rational decision-making process, if you're doing it just because it makes you feel better, if you're making sacrifices because you think it makes you a better person than someone else, you just got to realise that that's not the case. You know, the person who's going out every week and getting drunk and is still getting the physique they want, or at least not far off it, and is just having a much better time than you, that person is doing it right. And if you're the person who's sitting at home and never goes out and really isn't enjoying themselves as much as they could be, and has no competitive ambitions at all, then you've really got to sit down and question why you're doing what you're doing. Is it really going to derail your progress if you do go out and have a drink every now and again, or if you go out for a meal with your family or your friends? Those are the sort of things that you need to take into account. So if it fits your lifestyle, means you look at the things that you want to do in your life, like hobbies, you know, in particular, like I said, the commitments that you have that you can't change, and then you make choices about how you're going to structure your training diet around that, not the other way. Not starting with a diet and training program and saying, I'm going to just fit this, I'm going to make my life fit into this template no matter what, because that's the wrong way around. Okay, so all I'd say is, if you're looking, maybe you just started off training and you found this fantastic new template, for instance, and you're just thinking, right, I'm going to stick to this, you know, for as long as possible. I'm going to do it 100%. I'm going to eat 6 meals a day, you know, every 2.5 hours. And then, you know, a few weeks down the road, you realise how difficult this is, and you think, okay, I'm just going to give it up now. I can never do this. Then you need to start just looking at ways that you can fit your diet and training around what you need to be doing in your everyday life, what you want to be doing. Okay, rather than trying to do it the other way around. Don't try and squeeze your life into a body part split, because that's never going to work. Okay, so that's pretty much everything I want to cover today. If you've got any questions for me, like anything you want to see in any videos you want to see me talk about, just post it on our Facebook page, on the forums, on mention us on Twitter, or if you've got me on Facebook, just send me a message.